The next video is going to be how we automate it on GCP, and how we automate it with Azure is going to be the last one. The last one for the automation, because three of them has a pipeline. Like for Azure is the pipeline, DevOps pipeline. For GCP is the pipeline for GCP, and AWS is the pipeline. The pipeline explanation is whenever there is a client access, or like developer access the files within a repository, the repository normally it's going to be like GitHub, GitLab, whatever you want, Bitbucket, and of course commit, S3, wherever you want to host your repository or files, that they're going to be automated. Now we're going to start first by creating the console account, which is I created one under dedicates, and within this, whenever you want to create a new account, it's going to always add for you like checking for $1 in your credit card, and that's just to confirm that you are a human and you are a real person, that you are available in that location too, which is checking your address, checking your name, and connect them all together. Make sure that you are not like just a pod that you can create multiple accounts doing stuff. And now what we're going to create first, what we're going to do, we're going to first create our dedicates environment locally, and then we're going to post the file or push the file to a repository using code commit, and that's on AWS. And after that, we're going to create our build specs YAML file that is going to create for us how we can build the process, or where are the files, where's the root, where is everything, what happened with the code deployment, post-deployment, pre-deployment, all the options that we have with the code build. Elastic Beans that is going to be hosted in the front end, which is the back end for it is like EC2 and like containers, container repository, and we can depend on Docker, which is I prefer always Docker, but this is just for demo purposes. We're going to do everything possible for anyone who started as a beginner or as like an expert, just how they can create it in a simple steps. So what we're going to do, open first the terminal, and within the terminal we can use two ways to pull dedicates, as a Composer project, or we can do it as a GitHub. What we're going to do is we're going to use the Composer project so we can depend on the final stable dedicates environment. We're going to do Composer create project dedicates CLI, and then AWS Auto, which automation. Now what's going to happen is going to create a project for us named dedicates AWS Auto within that folder through Composer create projects and Composer packages, where you can find how we can create it, or you can go directly to dedicates. And when you go to dedicates.com, you just go to Composer, and here's where you can find out how we can create Composer CLI. If you want to keep the GitHub, if you don't want it back for you, you can keep them, you can remove them. But accidentally, it's much better to remove them so you can take care of your project inside the folder instead of having two GitHub connected with the same. AWS Auto built using dedicates. Now what we want to do, AWS, and this is what we have inside it. Clear S. Now what we have is dedicates project already built there. How to make sure that it's run DDK, and then you have to put your password for the root. So just this is privacy, there is nothing going out else than getting that how many times been installed in any local. So and secure 100%, there is nothing gonna share for your password. It's just the idea of like we can access the root folder for this user. Now what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that our dedicates is running. So if dedicates running, other videos going to explain for you more, that we're going to have at least dedicates container, and to start it is dedicates install, and we want it to be virtual. Now it's checking for you all the dedicates needed for Docker machine, Docker Compose. It pulls them all and makes sure that they already installed with the same version that you have as Docker. And after we make sure from it, it's going to install for us ddkits container, which is the proxy that we're going to depend on for our local environment, and then how we're going to use that local environment to push this as starting for Laravel to push it to AWS and make it as a pipeline depending on code commit, depending on code build, code deploy, and then we're going to connect it with CloudWatch. And let's see if it's a free for right now. If we want to use it, I think it's like, if we go back and check the try, there's a free limit for it, which is we can use it for this demo purpose too. Right. So right now, ddkits, thank you for using ddkits. ddkits is already running as ddkits. We have other environments we're using the same container, multiple containers, all of them depending on ddkits. And you can build as much as you want. It depends on how much the size you assign for Docker, how much they assign for virtual machine. You can add as much as possible. If we go ddki, we're going to see the images that we have. To clean up the none that we have them, we just run ddk run rmn. And rmn is going to delete all the containers that we don't connect them, or all the images that are not connected with any container. And if you go to containers right now, we have all of them, ddkc for containers, ddki for images. And if, let's say, I want to remove one, ddkri for image, or ddkrc for container. Now we have ddkits running. And if we make sure from it, we have ddkits proxy already started, and it's using always the 80 and the 443 ports, which is the main local host, or the main, like you load it for any container, it's always running through 80, and it's running for HTTPS 4443. And this is for the protocol. Now what we're going to do, we're going to create a new start for ddkits. And with this start, what we're going to build is mlayoub at outlook.com. That's my email address. Where is the root for Laravel? Different than Drupal, different than Zen, different than, actually Zen and Laravel the same web using public. And whenever we have the root, we can assign it which one we want. For like Acquia, let's say they use docroot. For other places like other images, like using compute for GCP, they're using compute too for some of the images and builds. So now what we're going to use public, because we're going to push Laravel stack. And this is your domain, how you can access it through the browser. We're going to do AWS site. We don't want any alias for it. What the MySQL root user is going to be ddk, and ddk. So it's going to be all ddk for the access for the MySQL Maria database. Now what we're going to do, it's asking us if we have Docker installed. We're going to say yes, and then we can pick any of these platforms to install in our local. The new version of ddkits, it has Chef, it has Ansible, it has Chef development kits, all of the different containers that you can install and start them locally. And it's going to be released within the next week maximum. It's already ready. I just want to make sure that I tested in multiple operation systems so I can make sure it's available for everyone. What we're going to build is Laravel, which is number 10. And number 10 is going to build for us Laravel. It's going to give us like Laravel folder, pull for us the latest version of Laravel, and give us a file named ddkits fix. ddkits fix is going to do the first clear cache, create folder, whatever we wanted or whatever we needed. But usually whenever you build a container, your permissions to create a folder for storage, frameworks, and that's going to be the cache, the data cache, you should create them within the container. And this is how we're going to access it after this installation happened. As we can see, right now it's finished installing. What happened is that within the process of installing ddkits for the new Laravel, it pulled Laravel and installed the version that we looked for. And then it asks us if we want Jenkins and Solr within ddkits for this specific site. And I said yes for Jenkins and no for Solr. Now when we have the pipeline for AWS, Jenkins is an extra option, but I will go through it and explain how we can connect Jenkins with GitHub and then publish it somewhere else. It depends on how the organization wants to happen, the pipeline for them as a CI/CD. Now what we're gonna do after it finished, we have folder named LL deploy, and this is where our Laravel exists. Now for the process, we first assign the name AWS.site, and this is where Laravel. Now we're gonna have an issue with Laravel, which is that always happen. But as you see, you have AWS, you can access it with HTTPS, but let's say like we don't want to use it with Chrome right now. So with AWS, we need to do something, which is first the cache, and then we need to run the dedicates minimum running for auth. And it's included for you. Well, what you need to do to access any container from here is to go through ddkc hyphen AWS, the site that we have, and if we push tab, it will take us for this variable. And this is in your bash profile. It can be accessed whenever you run ddkits. And now when we run ddkits AWS.site, right now we are inside a container. We are right now where we volumed our files from LLD deployed within the container. This is the folder where we're hosting right now this Laravel. What we're going to do, we're going to run first ddkits fix.sh. ddkits fix.sh has some commands that it's going to start clearing cache, doing permission stuff, whatever you need to start ddkits. Now what happened is that we need to run it twice. So the first time it created the data cache, and then it's going to create the tables for us. And the second time is going to do the table migrate for auth, create everything. So now if we run refresh to AWS.site, Laravel is ready, Logan is ready, and it's connected automatically with the environment MySQL that we wanted to do. Right now, let's say like this is the Laravel that we're gonna host. We don't want to do anything much, or let's do some quick edit just to make sure that this is not the Laravel that we have on AWS. Let's go for our Visual Studio, and let's do inside the deployed, inside the views, resources views, and let's say for the welcome, instead of Laravel, we're going to do ddkits, AWS pipeline and CI/CD automated. And let's save it. If we refresh here, this is our title. I know it's a long title, but it's just the idea of having the title showing that this is what we automated. Now, in general, when we want to have a code commit for AWS, we need to create our repository. So we can push our files to this repository, and from here, everything you can access. You don't have to create the build specs, but we're going to create it just for later to show how we can do the artifact, deploy, post-deploy, pre-deploy to check the login and stuff, which is we can create it directly from here and just pull it. So what we're going to do, we're going to create code commit, and we need to create a repository. This repository, we're going to say ddkits Laravel, and ddkits Laravel for AWS. Enable Google Reviewer for Java optional. We're not Java, or we're not using Java, so we're going to do create, because we did the capitalized ddkits Laravel, and then we create. Now what we're going to have the HTTP access for this repository. We can create files, we can add files, we can create notifications, we can clone URL. So what we need for now is our URL. So git remote code commit or SSH as what we want. First, we need to add SSH because this account is just new. I just created for the demo purposes. So what I'm going to do, first I have to go to IAM and then get to security to add my SSH for this user that I just created, which is ddkits. And you go to users, pick what dedicates you want, security credentials, and then upload SSH public. Now we need to get our SSH from our local. And to get our SSH from our local, we can do cat h id d, and we have id underscore sa. And here what they want is they want the public, so you have to get to the public, and then we pb copy, just to make sure that we copy it. So if we paste it, this is what we have as access. And then we go to paste it here, upload it. Now we have the SSH access, and it's active, which is we can use it back again for our code commit. And from the code commit, we go to dedicates Laravel. What we're going to do, we're going to clone this Laravel. And then what we're going to do, we're going to have to initiate get here. And it's initiated at get removed add, and let's call it like commit, or let's call it code commit, which is our repository, and we add this SSH for it. Now clear get pull from code commit master, which is get add. So let's do the get remote tree normally, which is we add what we have files, and then we just push it for the git commit, so we have it on the repository. And this is all the example. It should be showing for you here how to start it. After you want to create a prerequisite, like you need to add the code commits, SSW, SSH, and then you can create a file. If you want it to be standard here, you can add a file, you can upload it, you can do whatever you want by the UI. But always depend on the command lines, it's easier for you. So let's add them all. Yeah. And B1, dedicates AWS Laravel. Okay, good. So right now all these files I already got pushed them to master, which is we call it code commit master. And we already like with the tree, like we are update and the files are already there. Code commit right now in the repository, which has our codes that we want to host in Elastic Beans. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and create a new application, and the application named Laravel. And if you want to add tags, but the platform we're gonna use PHP, and we want it to be a simple application. Let's create the application. So Laravel is our application. Laravel environment is our first environment, which is always create for you the first environment. And now it's going to give us the domain after this environment being built. Right now we have the Laravel environment. Let's go inside and let's check the link what PHP have. Congratulations, your PHP application on AWS. This is the PHP version. Perfect. Now what we want to do is do the pipeline. You can go through the developer tools, or you can go here, code pipeline, and you can go through the code pipeline here. It's just going to take at the same time. So let's create the pipeline. And the pipeline, we're going to say Laravel. And we're going to keep everything as is. There's nothing we're going to change here. And then let's check the advanced. Perfect. So we're going to keep everything as default. Let's go next. Source provider, we're going to have the codes already exist on repository on code commit. So we're going to pick Laravel, master, and every time it's happened push to master, the CloudWatch is going to apply for it and make sure that it's happened the pipeline to run as soon as there's a new code or commit. Apply the code build on this project, and it's already been built for it, and we have the specification that we're going to run through the code build, which is Composer install. That's all, but we're going to add like environment, apply the environment. When we want to implement the database, we're going to depend on Mongo database. Because AWS, for GCP, we're going to do Mongo database. For Azure, the same, but for AWS, because they have the Dynamo database, we're going to depend on that one. So it will be easier to control it from the same management system. Now let's skip build stage and deploy provider. We're going to do it on Elastic Bean. We're going to do it on I'm sorry, we have to put California. And we're going to do Laravel environment, and then we do next. Perfect, and we're going to create the pipeline. Now what we expect, that our code is going to move to the Beanstalk, I'm sorry. Shows that it's right now it's installing, checking the info, health, and everything we need within the deployment. Deploy new version to instance, and now it's done there. So what we're gonna see, we're gonna find the error of Laravel because it doesn't host from the root. So what we need to do is we have to go to the environment itself, and we have to change where is the root. And as we see here, this one should be success, and let's do refresh. It deployed already. And this is perfect because right now the pipeline, it's already working depending on our commits. And we're going to do that within a second. Just let's fix the environment so we can at least see our Laravel from dedicates locally, how it's going to show here for AWS as a host for Beanstalk. So let's go to the environment, let's go to configuration, and within configurations we have to change something in the software, because where is the software, or what happened with the software is that we have to change the document root to public. And from the example you can find out there's a public here, and you can set the value whatever you want. You can play with these configurations. This is your environment configurations. But what we need to do right now, we just need to make sure that we have the root public. Let's apply the new public root. Now what we did is just changing the root from being the root inside the root folder for Laravel. We moved it to the public, which is index.php, and that's inside the public folder. And this is what's going to happen. As soon as we finish this one, the minimum we can see is this page. And this is how it needs to be. But the version that we have in our code commit, it doesn't have environment. So how it's going to work without having environment file included? And this is what we're going to do with the next commit, which is we make sure that we have the environment folder in commit here, and we're going to make sure that we take it off for the get ignore for the beginning, and make sure that we have it inside the pipeline. Let's wait for this one until it's finished, info, and it should be right now. Here you go. So now if we refresh this page, we got the error of Laravel. And this is the bootstrap error. It's so beautiful, actually. I love it. So this is the error for us because there is no environment file. So what we can do with what we have environment in our local, the minimum we can do is that we take off from the get ignore the environment, or the best way, which is we run the code build before getting to this situation, to getting to this page. But for now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna make sure that get involved, it has the key and the site. Let's change them. Just for testing purposes, don't do that. It's just you need to do it with the code build, but for now we need to test our site to show exactly as what we see here. So what we're going to do, we're going to do and take the domain and we just put it here, just to make sure that Laravel understand this is the domain for now. The debug is true, 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 it's Laravel. So that's good for now. Later we're going to connect the database, so we modify this one. Now the best way is we take a copy from our environment. We don't want to lose our local environment. So what we're going to do, we're going to make dir extra. And then we're going to copy the environment file to extra.environment. And now let's undo what we did in this file. And it's still working on our local. Now what we want to do is we need to push this file extra, and automatically the pipeline should be spin up and start doing the logic that we created within it. And we want to do that as soon as we get to this file, we want to extra folder, which is if we get status, we have the extra folder, should be not ignored. And this is why we ignore it, because of this one. Let's comment it, status, we have the extra folder. For now, what we need to do is we need to comment this one. And within the commit, we want to make sure that whenever we build any environment, I want to run Composer and I want to copy the extra file from this file to the root. And this is what we're going to do with the file with the code build. Within the code build right now, we have Composer install. Now after Composer install, we want, we can move it, we can copy it. Let's just do copy extra.env to the root. You can do it like this, you can do it like this, just leave it easier. And then we're gonna run source ddkit fix sh, and let's do it to dev null so we don't get disconnect if this one didn't work, because this one's not going to happen every time and it works. There's some codes inside it that it's like merge or migrate the database, the new databases is going to run every time you run this file, which is we don't want to do that, but later we can change this one to PHP artisan, or we can just like do it for now and later we comment this one artisan, and then clear. Now it's gonna run the ddkits. If it didn't work, it doesn't matter. This is how we hold it. We hold it inside like the null div, and then it's gonna run the PHP. So for now, we got the new environment. And get status. We need to add build specs. Status, and we have the dot environment, and we have the build specs. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna move them to the repository, and it's not gonna fix the issue because right now we need to move this one. We need to run first the build before it happened the stage, and this is where we're gonna play with the pipeline. So right now, let's go git commit, and we call this commit build specs and extra. Just make sure that you commit something clear so any developer after you needs to understand what's going on. Now let's get push, and I'm connecting it to master, which is wrong, but let's for this demo purpose we're gonna do that. Now what happened is the minimum we're gonna see is that our pipeline is gonna run because there is a new commit. As you see, we can see the pipeline as soon as there is a new commit is gonna run. But what is inside the commit is inside the extra environment and the build specs. None of them is running. It's gonna move it, it's gonna copy it, it's gonna work in this beanstalk, but it's not gonna fix our error. And this is where we need to play with. We need to make sure that our build happened after, or the pipeline happened after we made sure that this file been moved, cleared the cache, and did everything for us. And this is where we're gonna do or configure the code build within the pipeline. So now let's edit the pipeline, and let's add a stage, and we're gonna call this one build, or Laravel build stage, and add the stage. And within this build stage, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do Laravel code build, and the action provider we're gonna do code build, AWS code build. From the source, project name, none of them. We're gonna create a new project. And the project name is Laravel. What's gonna happen is gonna ask you to manage custom image operation. We're gonna Ubuntu, runtime standard 1, and this is the image that we're gonna use for regular Linux. And then this is a new service role. In a situation, if we find that we have a role that we already built before, we can use it. If it's related for another group, or we wanted some people, some groups to access this and can do the build, while not just for admin. But we're gonna do a create new. And create a new, this is what I don't like with this switching between existing and new roles. It's remove for you the name, and existing it could put it back for you. So if I go back and I want to assign it, this one's still checkbox. So you have, this is all JavaScript. It's annoying a little bit in Amazon, and I don't expect it to be always perfect, but still, like, this part is still like needs to be solved. So right now we need, let me just refresh this page. I'm gonna create a new project because it removed the services, and I just wanted to show how it works. Laravel, a new service. This is the service role. Is gonna be code build Laravel service role, and then we're gonna use again put Ubuntu standard images. Now this is perfect, and then we want to make sure that build specs use build specs, and normally build specs is going to be on this case, which is what we call it in our root file. As soon as we call this one, it's going to run for us the build specs that we did here, which is the pre is going to run for us like a pre-build. I just added this one just to show like how it's going to be built. It's going to show a different phase. And then if we want, we can leave it like CloudWatch, but again, CloudWatch logs always costly, and for demo purposes, I don't think I have enough space, but let's try it. All right, so right now we have the project name, or the code build is going to be Laravel. Maybe if you guys want, just comment on this video and let me know if you need more about artifacts. Now what we did, we added a stage named AWS code build, Laravel code build, I'm sorry, and it depends on code build. And this is where we're going to fix this error. This is the code build needs to be happening there. Now let's save it. And as soon as I save it, I should expect that my codes that I wanted to be built before deploying, they must run before going to the release. So now, because it didn't run like Laravel, we have to run release, or we push another commit and it's going to run the new pipeline. Now the new pipeline, including our code build, and after the code build, is going to go back to deploy to the Elastic Beanstalk. Now it's progress. If you want to see the progress details, you can tail it. You can tail the logs. So right now it's running Composer install, which perfect. This is the steps that we asked for. Let me go back. I'm so sorry for that. So right now we said like run for us Composer install, and after Composer install, I want you to run for me the copy file, and after copy file, I want you to run for me the ddkits. Not found the output script, but it's not gonna disconnect it because what I said, don't do that. Just keep it as is. I want the script to run if it exists. And then PHP crash clear, post build. Now what would happen with our success is that already successful building the file and did our operation that we ask as a command line. Now let's go back to the pipeline and let's make sure that it passed the pipeline exactly where we will have the error, which is there is no environment file and there is no vendors files within this folder. I want it to happen always as soon as it being deployed. And in this case, it's already succeed. And if it didn't run, then I have something wrong with my pipeline. But from my pipeline, I can tell you guys that we can add stages more. We're gonna add like more about code checking. We're gonna depend on a lot of opportunities, whatever we can depend on for free actually. Whenever there's a free tier for AWS, we're gonna depend on it. And we're gonna show how it works. What we did is by mistake, I think I added the original, but that was my bad. So what we wanted to do is that add build specs, and then get commit. Let's use the same commit, and then get push. I'm sorry for repeating the build, but because by mistake I already committed the environment file with it, which is I don't want it to, but it's gonna work. That's the problem. It's like this is how Laravel is not that smart. This is environment with a local host that is not equal to what we're hosting here. And this is going to happen a problem for us later whenever we want to implement some other features, some other stuff that we wanted to fix. As soon as we push it, it's going to be connected with the ID of database. And if the database HTTPS, if we want to call like APIs or something and we don't have the right environment file, it's not going to work for us. And for now, it works for this one. Let's wait until the pipeline is going to work for us to build the new status. So the new status for us, this is the old one, and let's go to the pipeline. We can go for pipeline, like instead of going to the pipeline and then we go to the code build, we can directly just go to build, history, or projects. You can access the projects from here. We have Laravel, and this is the runtime for it. If you want to see the build runtime, you're going to see that it's the new one. Now, so what happened here is that we have our dashboards. We did the environment to be changed for static. We know that any environment going to fix it. It's just the idea to have environment, and our codes in the code build, it already set up for us the clear cache, and it shows us what we have on the local. Now, for the simplest, what we're gonna do is like we're gonna do some changes, but after first we need to wait until like the new environment loads for us, which is we don't want to have any issue before we push it. Let's wait for the environment to build, and this is the pipeline environment. Perfect. Now the environment is correctly what we want, which is we move it inside the extra folder. That's the extra folder that we're gonna do for the environment. Now let's do some changes with the welcome page. Right now it's a really bad long sentence. Instead of title, what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to break it down or do something, change styles with this one. So first, let's take off the documentation and let's do CI/CD instead of and. Let's do breakline. So now let's see on our local. So this is how it's gonna be. This is how it is right now with this semblance. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add the resources. So where we change is inside the resources views. So anything you see is a resource for Laravel. This is not related to AWS, but I just tried to explain why I'm adding a commit this folder. And now let's commit changing file, or we change the title, I'm sorry, push. Now all these commands, the best part of it, whenever you have it already automated, you're not worried about this site. Now imagine you're gonna do this merge whenever you have a production, you have to push it like Acquia. You need to push it for production, and then if you wanted to test, you have to have another folder and push it for test, and maybe you can have like in the config git. There is a lot that CI/CD solve for us. We're gonna depend on different stuff. Now what we're waiting for, I'm sorry it took me long, but I was waiting for the build to happen for the pipeline. And it's still in the progress. Code build finished. Now what happened with this page, it should be equal to this page. This is what we have locally. This is what we have on the server. And if we refresh, this is our server. And everything works. Perfect. This is exactly how simple you can automate DDKit's Laravel and move it. Or you can automate any Laravel or any PHP, and you just use automations or pipelines, CI/CD, without worrying about the code. Later on, I'm going to add more tutorials about what we can do within this process, because the build process or build stage is the best place that you can test your product. Your products, your website, anywhere you want to test should be within the build stage. As soon as it's deployed, you need to make sure 100% that this deploy would never pass with any error. For some CMSs, like Drupal, WordPress, let's more about like MVCs. There is PHP code standards, and professional sites, you shouldn't let it. The minimum I can explain of how the pipeline works, how we can implement code build in AWS, and following gonna be for GCP and Azure. And later on we can do like platform SH, or how we can automate it using the GitHub as a code instead of depending on code commit for AWS, which is the simplest way.